Playoffs bring the hits and the whistles or lack thereof. Roughing is up, stick infractions are down. What do the refs really do when the biggest games are on the line? Let's unpack playoff penalties by type and timing. In the physical penalties, roughing stands out. It's up 50% in the playoffs compared to the regular season. This is simply because players tend to play with a lot more intensity in the playoffs, and roughing is traditionally a retaliatory penalty or an aggression-based penalty where you're trying to get under the skin of your opponent. It is most commonly called when you are the third man in. It is also the most commonly called when you respond to a cross-check, a slash, or another grievance you may have that a referee didn't call. You can see up here on the screen, roughing is a punching or slamming motion without the glove on the hand, normally directed to the head or the face of an opponent, or if a player intentionally removes their opponent's helmet during play. Sebastian Aho. This one is commonly called, and you are never going to like it when your team gets called for it, because frankly, somebody did something to likely deserve this retaliatory penalty. Cross-checking is also up in the playoffs, and that is because players frankly just do it way more. It hurts, it's painful. It's when you take two hands on your stick and press it against an opponent's back or arm, you get one. That's the difference in the playoffs. Always be first to the cross-check. If you're going to cross-check, go ahead and let them have it. If you're going to cross-check, also do it in front of the net. A net front battle is going to negate most opportunities for you to call this penalty. The other criticality to it, only do it once. When you do it 2 or 3 times, the ref is waiting, especially when it's near the boards. Cross-check is simple. It is the action of using the shaft of the stick between two hands to forcefully check an opponent. We see this 100 times a game, and it can feel really unjust when our team finally gets called for it. Boarding is another physical penalty defined simply as a violent check into the boards. If the hands went up as the rule book was written on this one, there frankly would be no hitting in the game of hockey. It's called under the referee's discretion. It is way down in the playoffs and is typically only reserved for the most egregious, dangerous hits where the outcome is a clear injury where the player does not get up. Hockey players typically do not stay on the ice to sell penalties. Contrary to the opinion of most fans on the opposing or the offending team, the player that usually goes down injured is very injured. These plays hurt, they're ruthless, they can put you in a hospital, they can give you a concussion, they can prevent you from walking for the rest of your life, but it is part of the game and it's an agreed upon piece that players like as part of the playoffs. Checking from behind, another rare call in the playoffs. A check from behind is a check delivered to a player who is not aware of the impending hit and therefore is unable to protect or defend themselves. The criticality of this is, did the player turn? You can victim blame on this one. If the player turned and assumed his back in the NHL, it is going to be unlikely that a penalty is called. There is no minor penalty from a check from behind. If it is a check from behind, it's going to be a major penalty. This can be resulting from a cross-check from a board, but most of the time, because there is no minor penalty from checking from behind, a check from behind is called boarding because there's a minor penalty for boarding, so refs will use that call instead of this one. The only time this one is ever going to get called is if it is so completely egregious and there is such a bad injury on the ice that he feels he has no other opportunity but to make this call. Elbowing. Sam Bennett, we're looking at you. It is the reaction or infraction of a player's elbow coming up too high and making contact with another player's head, including a goaltender. The challenge with this call is that if a player has his elbow tucked close to his body or both players are ducking down low and the elbow makes contact with the head, a discretionary no call can be made. We see this in Jacob Trouba. We see this in Sam Bennett. We have even seen this in Connor McDavid. Elbows can go missed and uncalled. They're very dangerous, but it is a highly interpretive call. It's also a rare call in the playoffs. The final rare call you're going to see in the playoffs on the physicality side is the illegal check to the head. Did you target the head of your opponent? It does not matter if you elbowed him or used the stick. You can use your shoulder. You can perform a clean check. It is not clean if you have targeted the head, but there are 3 caveats to this one. 1, did the player attempt to hit squarely through the opponent's body? If they were trying to hit through the body, the referee and league can interpret this one as okay. Number 2, victim blaming again. Did the player put himself in a vulnerable position? If you don't have your head up on the trolley tracks, you've put your head down, or you've made a sharp cut to the middle of the ice at the wrong time, you're not going to get called for this one. And the third one is, did the player materially change the position of his body, stick out his neck, and try to get a penalty drawn? That one's super rare. This one is almost never called in the playoffs. It can result in big injuries and devastating hits, but when it is called, everybody sees it coming. Interference calls increase slightly in the playoffs. Interference is the most complicated rule in the NHL rulebook, and it gets even more complicated when it comes down to goaltender interference. The short one of this is, did the player without a puck, if a player does not have a puck, was he impeded on his path towards the puck? That means you are not allowed to offensively pick players. You are not allowed to hit players who do not have the puck or who didn't just immediately possess the puck. Goaltenders are allowed their space. The space in the crease is not sacred to goaltenders. Players can enter, but a player cannot interfere with a goalie's ability to play the puck with one strong caveat. If the goaltender's defenseman pushes him into the goaltender, which we see commonly, it will not be called goaltender interference. That's why defensemen have to pull players away as opposed to cross-checking, pushing them into their own goaltender. Players are getting a little wobbly-legged around goaltenders at this point in time, but according to the rule book, it is not interference. The easiest way to look at interference in a hockey game, especially in the playoffs, because the physicality goes up a high amount, the penalty is actually called more in the playoffs than it is in the regular season, but it's not called enough for most fans. It's very simple to see when someone has been interfered with your eye. You do not need to be a referee, but most of the time, this penalty is not going to get called. It's going to leave a salty taste in your mouth. This is one of those rules where if you can play in between the rules and understand the gray, and most of us, including Coach Ryan D, do not always understand the gray, you can give your team a massive advantage. So this is one that teams will take advantage of in the playoffs. This is one referees will call just a little bit more, and we have no idea what it means when it comes down to goaltender interference, although we try our best. Tripping is a penalty that is called the same in the playoffs as it is in the regular season. Why? Because the standard of officiating really focuses on, did the penalty impact the play? They want goals up, and tripping always occurs to the player that has the puck. At any point in time, if a part of your body, it could be your foot, your knee, your leg when you lie down as a defenseman, it could be your stick. If it makes contact with a player's stick, skate, ankle, or knee that results in a player tumbling and going down, you are going to be called for tripping. And this one is called exactly the same way in the playoffs as it is in the regular season. It can be an extremely frustrating call. There is no playoff standard for this call. A trip is a trip. It is the simplest one to see. High sticking is also one called the same in the playoffs as it is in the regular season. If your stick gets above a player's shoulders and makes contact with their face, specifically the area of the face below the visor, and the player's head snaps back, you're going to be called for high sticking. You're going to get 4 minutes if the player is bleeding, 2 minutes if the player is not bleeding. This can be a high cross check. This can be a blade. This can be an errant stick as you're trying to pass somebody, but this call is almost always called properly. Every call has the caveat that it can be missed at times. Players go looking for blood. Sometimes players might even bite their lip or rub their mouth hard, trying to create blood. It's wild that you get 4 minutes for a little nick on the lips when a violent check into the boards that can turn a man into a quadriplegic isn't called as long as he gets up. This is a frustrating call for players, for referees, and for fans alike. But until they find a way to get rid of the half visors, and I doubt that's happening anytime soon, this one will be called exactly as it's being called today. Holding is another call, shockingly, that is called the same in the regular season as it is in the playoffs. It's simply any action by a player that restrains or impedes the progress of an opposing player, whether or not they're in possession of the puck. If you're an NFL fan, it's very simple. You get that arm around, you pull back from behind, that's going to be a hold. You stick your arm out without a stick, especially one-handed, that is going to be a hold. Holding is always going to be called, though, if it impedes an opportunity for a player to score. But the best part of the most elite defensemen in the world is that they hold without getting caught. The criticalness to this penalty and not getting caught is moving your feet, staying on the right side of the puck that's between your goaltender and the player who has the puck, and making sure you keep strong body position. You will likely get away with a hold if you are able to keep up your speed. But as soon as a player like Connor McDavid gets around you and has even a stride, that arm's going to go up. You're going to get 2 minutes for holding. 2 calls that go way down in the playoffs. Number 1 is hooking. It is the act of getting your stick around a player and impeding them, or it can be even the act of turning your blade over on another player's stick, toe down. The call is simply the act of using a stick in a manner that enables a player to restrain an opponent. And in the minor penalty tab, it talks about impeding a player. All of these penalties are the same. If it impedes a player with the puck's progress going forward, you have an opportunity to get called, but this one is called way less in the playoffs than it is in the regular season. And that's simply because this is the lazy penalty. If a player gets around you, you need to take those extra strides to get in front of them and physically take the puck away. Hooking is an act of a player that has been beat, that is gliding, that is lazy, that doesn't want to put in the extra work, and that is not playoff hockey. Every player in the playoffs will work their butt off to back check, back pressure, get on the right side of the puck, and do things physically in order to separate man from puck. That is why this call goes way down in the playoffs compared to the regular season. Players just aren't lazy. Lazy players don't make the playoffs. Lazy players don't win Stanley Cups. Lazy calls aren't made in the playoffs because of it. And finally, the last one, a bench minor. How about things like too many men on the ice? This one goes way down because players are more adept. They are ready. Coaches are ready. They will do everything they can in order to make sure they don't get this called. And the criticality to this rule is that the team with too many men on the ice, because every change on the fly technically is too many men on the ice, has to touch the puck and make an impact to the play. If it accidentally grazes a skate, touches a foot, or you shoot it at the bench, it is unlikely that this one will be called, but sometimes it may because every rule comes down to the referee's discretion. At other times, referees, they're like human beings. It can be a pressure cooker like we saw between Edmonton and Florida in overtime. That 100% was too many men on the ice, but it didn't get called. Referees don't like the pressure of making this call late in games. It is way down, though, in the playoffs compared to the regular season. Once again, lazy penalties do not exist for playoff teams, but when they do, we get fired up. There you have it. A quick and simple breakdown to penalties that are called more frequently and less frequently in the playoffs. No matter what you found helpful or unhelpful in this video, the standard of refereeing does change game by game. Games are not fixed. Referees are the best referees, even though most people do not like the calls on either side of the ice. Most people feel like the league, Gary Bettman, or referees are out against themselves, but referees are run independently from the league, and they are evaluated at midseason. They are evaluated after Series 1 of the playoffs, Series 2, Series 3, and Series 4. And some of the best referees get cut after Series 1 because of the criticality of the NHL critiquing their games. They just don't do this publicly. We don't get to see it. If the NHL would release more data on referees and more evaluations on referees, maybe fans would feel better. I also feel there's the inclusion of gambling heavily into hockey, into sports now, which really weighs on fans' minds. Regardless, I hope you found this video fun, a little bit entertaining. No matter what we do, a call will be a call or a call won't be a call. And you've heard me say it before, you'll never get the call you want, but you'll always get the call you weren't expecting, especially when it comes down to the playoffs. So best to just strap in and enjoy the ride. And if we don't like it, we only really have one option as hockey fans. Don't watch. And is that really an option? Probably not for anyone watching this video. Have a great night.